I'll go through just a few things, and then mostly I'll just ask if you have questions. I'm going to share this just because I think it's so interesting, and I haven't grabbed the updated numbers for this fall yet, of course, but here you can see how at NDSU have really grown in the last few years for high school students taking classes. Like we started back in, if you just look back the last few years, fall, I think we had one student taking four credit class, like a lab plus a 3 credit class, all the way up to, last fall where we were close to about 350 credits worth of students, high school students taking credit with us. And I predict that we're going to continue to grow because more students are continuing to take more credits. So I think it shows us kind of the opportunity that's out there to build bridges and pathways into NDSU. The other thing that we see is we have a much higher conversion rate for those high school students. When you look at schools like the community colleges, NDSU, BSC, they sell a lot more dual credits than they do, but they convert very few of them into, matriculated full-time students or into, degree seeking students, where we are closer to 50% of those students convert into students for us. So it's a kind of a long, both a short and a long game for us. People often ask the difference between dual credit and early entry, and so I thought that would be a good place to start as well. I think the biggest thing to remember is that dual credit, there's an upfront agreement. So there's an upfront agreement between NDSU and the high school that the class will be for both high school and college credit. For early entry, it's the student coming to us and we're working with them. That doesn't mean they might not go to their high school and say, hey, I've taken this NDSU class and I counted for dual credit. And the school may approve it, but that's more on the student and they work out the details. I might still help them provide them with information or give their grade to the school when they're done. Ask me to do that. But that upfront agreement, we have an actual MOU like with CDE with Jamie. It's got the Power 170 that he's offering. We have an MOU in place, and those students are enrolling with the explicit intention to get both high school and college credit. Most dual credits, if delivery does get a class dual credit or early entry, like if it's offered by us or them, that's not what makes the class dual credit. But typically, dual credit, when students think about it, it's usually a class offered at their high school by their high school teacher, and the credit is given by like NDSU or BSC. We can do that as well, but in the case that we've got right now with the Center for Distance Ed, we're actually offering the classes. But again, it's that upfront agreement that makes the difference. The tuition rate is determined by the location. So if the class gets dual credit and it's taught by us, so the location is NDSU, it's about $153 per credit for about $461 for a 3 credit class. So a little over a third of what original credit costs. So it's quite a cost savings for those families. If the location of the class is at the high school, so they're subsidizing the class through the instructor resources space, it's about $83 per credit. And so considerably less. The early entry, those are our classes, and students are taking our classes with our students, same expectation, same class. That's really great. They earn high school credit, but again, that's usually on the back side. I'll stop here and ask just if anybody has any questions about that. If you think of one later, just be sure to ask. Another question I often get is what makes a good early entry class. High school students can really take any class at NDSU that they want. And so there's no such thing as like, this is an early entry class or this is not a class. Like for example, last year we had a student who had been with us for a couple of years taking classes, and he had worked his way up to where he was taking 300 level physics and math classes. And so you can generally think of that being his early entry, but it was because he had taken the classes and worked his way up into those, and completed those prerequisites. But generally, the best early entry classes are ones that provide an introduction to the major. Generally, the best ones are online because most students across North Dakota can't come to campus for class, or even if they are located in close proximity to campus, getting here and fitting it in their schedule can be pretty hard.
Another, I think, thing is if you're really thinking about wanting to attract some high school students, build that bridge, build that pathway, is to perhaps set aside a couple of spots in the class that you can give to early entry. The biggest trouble I have this time of the year is that a student will reach out and say, hey, I want to take this class. There's no spot left. High school students tend not to be ready to enroll for fall in March when our students are ready to do that. They're reaching out now. And so, as you can imagine, the classes are full. The other thing that I'll say is if you're really thinking about having a class and you're wanting to really recruit and to promote and you think it'll be a great early entry class, one that will attract high school students, I would really work on making that curriculum high quality, really putting an instructor in there that is going to be a good first experience. And odds are that's also a class that's going to be one that your freshmen take. So I think it's a good investment to have that class be taught by somebody who's really going to invest in good teaching. Dual credit classes, these are the ones that, again, there's that upfront agreement and kind of the same thing where you have to be able to have capacity. So like, for example, this semester, Jamie's got a section for the Center for Distance Ed of his Farm 170 class. There has to be a separate section for those dual credit kids. And so you really have to think about making sure that you know how many students you can handle, what your capacity is, that you have, you're kind of set up in advance to make sure that if you need to merge your blackboards and things like that, that you can get that all taken care of. Those classes really do need to be online to be accessible. And again, high quality and taught by an invested instructor. The thing that dual credit high schools are looking for out of dual credit classes, number one is that it's a gen ed, like in Jamie's case, that Farm 170 is a wellness credit or an introduction to the major or both. And in some cases, there's some classes that can count both for a major, like a Psych 111 is required by a lot of majors, but it's also a gen ed class is one example of that. Dual credit classes that are taught at the high school by the high school teacher, but we award the credit. We can't step on the toes of the community colleges or the regionals. So if they're offering it, we can't. And so we tend to look for classes that are kind of our specialty areas, or maybe a 200 level, something that goes kind of beyond that 100 level class. But again, if they can be general ed, that's going to be a bonus, one that students will go for, or fit into a major that we can draw students into, and especially if it's multiple majors, like a lot of our health science classes, we have classes or business, for example. There are a lot of classes that cross multiple majors, have few or no prerequisites. That's another thing because most high school students want to take in those prereqs. And again, even though the high school teacher is teaching them, they still need to be well set up. So there needs to be kind of that clear framework and learning objectives that you can use to guide the adjunct instructor, that high school teacher, because they need to teach our class. If we're awarding the credit, it needs to be our class. And I've talked to some department heads as we have rolled out some of these dual credit classes. The best model is to have a faculty member who can be assigned as kind of that liaison or support person for the high school teacher, especially if there any professional development or training is needed. Because again, you want them to teach our class. And I'll stop there now and ask if there are any questions.
I'll ask a question for you, Stace.
Okay.
So still, when you say regional, it includes Valley City.
Yeah. Yeah. So communities are, your 2-year colleges, although now they're almost all of them are offering 4-year degrees. So, and then our regionals are Mayville and Valley City. Valley City is really heavy into the dual credit game. Minot offers a little bit, Mayville offers a little bit, and Dickinson offers a little bit, kind of in their own communities. But Valley City is all in. Kind of the department role as we continue to roll out dual credit for the 26-27 school year, we'll probably have about 10 dual credit classes that we're going to be offering with Fargo and West Fargo, in particular around the arts, probably communication and foreign languages. And so some of the things that and then engineering, hopefully, but maybe not coming till the 27 school year. The departments will have a role in this. They will need to approve the instructors just like they do for an adjunct instructor. So the instructor will have to meet qualifications as we would have for any instructors on our campus. We also need to approve their syllabus. So we will provide them with guidance, but they need to meet our qualifications and the class needs to be ours. Collaborate to provide any training, professional development, or support that teacher may need in order to teach our class. And then this is, I think, what's going to separate us from those mass market credits that the community colleges are selling, is that we want to add value to the dual credit experience. And I'm going to explain a little bit about what I mean for that. So last fall, we had the opportunity to do Entrepreneurship 201 with Northern Cass. I wanted to make sure that because a teacher up at Northern Cass was teaching our entrepreneurship class, but I wanted those students to know they were Bison, that they were taking an NDSU class, and I wanted every opportunity to get them connected to NDSU and use it as a recruiting opportunity. We provided, I believe, 3 different guest speakers for Mackenzie. Some Zoomed in, some went up to campus and spoke, and we brought them to campus to interact. So entrepreneurship, what worked out really well there is the students were designing their own businesses. So they brought their pitches down and they made pitches to students that are in our College of Business and Entrepreneurship. And we also did, this was so cool, but the College of Business went all in on this, and they did a startup brew for the Northern Cass students. And they went out to Brewhalla and met up, and they had speakers and a really neat morning, and really, really leveraged NDSU. And so when we get these dual credit classes up and running, I'm going to be reaching out to instructors and departments to say, what are we going to do for that item for? Like, how are we adding value to that dual credit class? I was sitting at the table with the folks who do dual credit from Valley City and from NDSCS, and somebody spoke up and said, I guarantee you that those kids don't even know where they got their credits from. And I thought, well, isn't that stupid? Because that is really a lost opportunity. And then just a little bit later, I'm talking to the folks from admission, and they're talking about all the trouble they have with the kids coming in from Minnesota who have all those really nice free PSEOs, just like our dual credit, and how much trouble they have because those kids have no idea where they got their credits from. So they don't know where to get their transcripts. And again, I thought, oh my gosh, like, how are they not seeing that this is an incredibly huge lost opportunity? And we are going to do everything we can because this is an absolute recruiting tool. The other thing that I want to work with Instructional Design Center is I want to build out something that everybody can put into their Blackboard that will have like a module that students can click into to learn more about the major and more about the degree at NDSU, because why not, right? It should be a recruiting tool. And then even like a lot of times we end up with students in our classes, even if we already have them on campus, they either are uncertain about their major or they haven't chosen at all. And it's an opportunity even to grab some of our own students and their, undecideds into your major. So what can you do right now to leverage dual credit and early entry to build pathways into your degree? Spread the word. We have pathway guides, and if you don't see a pathway guide in your area, let us know. We'll build one. Connie, we'll build one. I say we. It's a really big we. It's really Connie, but she loves to have your help to identify what classes should be on your pathway guide. Like, what classes should we recommend to high school students to take if they want to come into your major? What will actually help them? What will shorten their time to degree? What will allow them to pick up a minor while they're here if they want to do those sorts of things? What will add value to their degree? Add that information in each of your Blackboard courses about your major, about careers in your major. Have faculty guest speak out in the schools as much as you can, connecting with those classes out in the schools that are going to be the sorts of students that might come into your major. Fargo and West Fargo all have career-based pathways in their schools. My kids, my one son did like the construction and engineering pathway down at Davies. So all of our high schools have some of these specialized pathway classes, have special visits for dual credit and early entry. And I know Jenny's done that. We've done this in the School of Ed when I was there, and I think you guys still do it. But like on a day when we're bringing students to campus, where you can have a special allotted time where they come over and they visit your department. But we could invite these dual credit and early entry kids to come for a special visit, part of a visit day, like when they're already going to come visit NDSU. You're an early entry student, you're a dual credit student. So we also want to invite you to breakfast, or we want to do this special thing with you while you're coming to campus. And then we want to make sure we work with admissions in your departments. Recruit. Send these kids postcards, send these kids emails, and let them know that you'd love to answer their questions or work with them or have them in your classes, have them in your major when they're graduating from high school. And I'll stop there so we have a little bit of time. So any questions or comments or ideas that you have? It's quiet, but I'll tell you, so I read an article the other day, and there's a lot of debate around dual credit and early entry, and whether it's, actually a benefit, whether it's does any good for the students, to take these early college classes. And they said, and what's happening with a lot of students is they're taking classes that end up not counting toward anything, and they have this, misconception. And so one thing we've really been pushing at NDSU is purposeful class taking, advising for high school students. Dual credit students never receive advising at these community and regional colleges. That's how we're going to be different. We want to provide advising, even if that means we tell them, take your English 110, 120 at your high school. The credit will be through NDSCS, but that's fine. It transfers in just fine, and so it's not that we're trying to necessarily get them to take all our classes, but making sure that when they get here, they're not disappointed, they're not upset or frustrated because they paid for and took a whole bunch of classes that don't count. The other thing that they talked about is that they become, or they're kind of misled when they might take a class that didn't actually prepare them to take some of the classes in college. Like they weren't rigorous enough. They weren't really the true college experience. And so some of the advice that I give students and families when I'm advising is take your major classes with us. Not only then will you be certain that it's calibrated properly to take the next class in your major, but you're also going to get a chance to build relationships with the peers that will be part of your group going through your classwork at NDSU. And you'll get a chance to network and meet your professors, instructors on campus. And so that's kind of helpful. Oh, we have an online question. What are some things instructors should know about dual credit early entry students that's different from NDSU students? That's a great question. So as far as like FERPA, high school students are college students if they're taking a class at the college. So we follow the same FERPA rules as we do for all of our students. I've had parents reach out to me, and I'm just really clear that I go in and I check to see if they've signed, if their student gave them FERPA rights. And if not, I say I can answer general questions about a class or NDSU, but I can't tell you specific things about your child. So it's the same there. But the other thing I would tell you is that I've seen generally that most of these kids are really high flyers. And so academically, they're very ready for your classes. And so I think there's a little bit of a misconception sometimes among our professors that, their high school students are not ready for this. Academically, most of them are, not always, but what they're not used to yet is the structure of college. And so they may have a few more questions or be a little less confident about how a college class works. And so being ready to answer some questions and being maybe just a little more patient, they're probably going to be a little bit more like your first semester freshman, where they haven't taken a college class before. They may have done dual credit, but it was with their high school teacher at their high school. Did I answer the question? Do you have more you want me to? This semester, I'm going to be reaching out to all of the instructors who have high school students to let them know. And that way, if they have any questions or concerns, they can let me know. But generally, they're in your class and they should be expected to work, to the same level as all the rest of your students. Like Jamie will know who his are because he has a separate section. But like your early entry students, they're just in with the rest of your students. All right. It's pretty quiet. If you have any ideas, you want to just brainstorm, you have any questions, or like I'm going to go over and talk to biology here this fall because they want to start looking at how they can leverage some of their coursework to get, build some bridges and pathways in for high school students. Definitely open to doing things like that. Any other questions, Connie? It's good. All right. Thank you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the, oh, there's Sean. Sean, did you have any questions, or we're about to wrap up? Did you join for a reason? Were there any questions that you had? No?
Hello.
Sean?
Um, you talking to me?
Yeah, did you have any
I'm
questions?
the only Sean here.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions. I don't know if we have time for them. I know that the dual credit market and the Coursera and the recruiting market is a lot larger than just in the metro area. So my questions might extend beyond the dual credit with some kind of teaser courses, I guess. Some people offer free online courses that you can count. So I'm trying to figure out beyond just the local metro area. Population isn't the biggest in North Dakota. How do you recruit beyond that? But I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
You make a great point. So, a little while back, this summer, I had talked to the provost and university relations because you're right. We have it's like it's almost 80% of the students enrolled in our dual credit early entry are from about 60-mile radius, around Fargo. So if you drew a circle around Fargo, that's, where our students are from mostly. And so we have a real opportunity to to tap into the markets outside of that, especially in Western North Dakota. We have very few students enrolled in our classes in Western North Dakota. So I asked the provost, could there be some marketing funding to help us with getting the word out a little bit more strongly? We do things like we send out emails to all the counselors in North Dakota. Connie works on that a lot, sending out the early entry brochures to the schools in North Dakota. So we have some softer marketing that we do. But I would love to have some, we basically do as much as we can for a very, very small budget. And so I've asked the provost to consider giving us some funding to do some bigger marketing um, out, so that we can get a bigger market involved. And then we also know that places like, for example, Alaska have a real shortage of opportunity. And so there's also, even outside of North Dakota, opportunities to attract some high school students, possibly. So.
Yep. I was wondering about Minnesota, but I don't know what kind of red tape when you're looking at the educational systems crossing borders
Well,
that would entail, but maybe Alaska's got less red tape and they're more incentivized than Minnesota would be.
so the thing with Minnesota is they have a pretty robust system for their high school students, and it's free. And so it's really hard
Okay.
to compete with free. Um, we do get some Minnesota students. In fact, behind North Dakota, the next highest state enrollment is Minnesota for our dual credit early entry. And those tend to be the students that know they're coming here and they start working on their major. Engineering in particular, are the ones that we get. And so that's but the deal is that the classes are free. And so we, like when Connie and I are at, discovery days or things like that, we actually tell the parents, free is better than paying, take your free classes. They
Yeah.
transfer in, and that's fine. But when you're getting ready to take your major classes, take them with us. We also get, like, our engineering students in particular, they'll take their math classes with us because then they know they're properly calibrated. Um, we've seen, and the word's gotten out, that a lot of students will take, say, Calc 1, and they'll take it through maybe their high school as dual credit or AP, or they'll take it through their local community college, and they're not ready for Calc 2 when they get here. And so we get a lot of students coming here to take their Calc 1, Calc 2 classes.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Anything else? We've got a couple minutes. Where do you teach? What do you teach, Sean?
I teach finance and accounting. I'm in the College of Business. So, and I was looking at the early entry pathways and the courses. Some of the intro accounting courses are there. You said you wanted them to be lower level courses, which makes sense. Um, there's other courses we're thinking about creating is just incentivizing people into our major, which can extend if you create lower level courses, like a personal finance course, for instance, which, pretty much everyone in college would benefit from. That's an extension into the high school realm as well. They're going to benefit from it. And I don't know that all high schools have it in their curriculum anyways. So,
Yeah, and if it's a gen ed, that would be, like, and Jamie dropped off, but Jamie Steig, they developed Farm 170, and I'm gonna try to get the title right, but it's something like Common Diseases Prevention and Treatment, and it's a wellness class. They made it 2 credits, and that class has been an instant hit, and we've got a
sure.
lot of early entry dual credit kids enrolled in it too. Um, it's a wellness credit, and it's also super interesting.
Yeah.
So classes like that can make great dual credit early entry, and it's online. So it's completely accessible wherever you are.
I think it's a nice handoff too. I don't know how much traveling people do and going talking to schools and things like that at their career fairs. But if you do that, it's nice to have a handoff like, hey, we're here representing this college. Here's the majors we teach in. Here's a course you could take right now if you want to get a flavor for it. So I'm just thinking about how all these pieces might fit together.
The other thing that I think about, like, especially when I'm talking to families that are, maybe their students been taking dual credit classes at their high school taught by their high school teacher, and they want to start taking college classes taught by the college, like by us. Um, I usually don't recommend they take Calc 1 online first. I'll say, let's put our toe in the water, not jump in the deep end. Let's take,
Mhm.
and so some of these classes that are gen eds can be a really nice way to sort of scaffold your way into a college experience without, again, jumping in the deep end. And so classes like Farm 170 or Psych 111, where it's the cognitive demand isn't super high, so they can get used to the structure and the expectations and the discipline, before they're also having to really work hard on a very complex topic, and so if you think about that too, when you guys think about what, online classes that you get ready, um, it'd be nice to have that sort of first experience class, might be a nice one too.
Okay, so the options here are taught on campus by faculty, taught at the high school by a trained high school teacher, or they could take it online asynchronous, I guess, or somewhat synchronous.
Yeah, yeah. Those are kind of the 3 different ways that high school students can take classes with us.
And do they have online synchronous classes?
So sometimes, so Daryl Richardson teaches, I think is it Wonders of Weather or something like that, and
Okay,
that one is online synchronous. And
okay,
Com 133 also is online synchronous. And so there are a couple, and we do get some students in those classes from high school, but it has to work with their schedule. And so in those cases, I would say either go early or late. It's hard to
okay.
middle of the day, but I mean, you have to do what fits for you. But the Wonders of Weather one works kind of okay because it's a little later in the day. It's like doesn't start
Yeah,
till 2. And then I think that's the same for the Ag Comm class. It's also like 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that the students can take their classes and all the way up until that time. It's harder to fit it if you have to go back and forth. Like you have to go from high school classes to college class back to high
mhm.
school classes because it almost never fits. And so
Yeah. I wonder if you could wrangle them. I mean, I don't know how it works, if they just do it at home or their own devices or something like that, or if you could have a classroom setting with somewhat of a TA physically there. Or someone
possibly.
else. I wonder if that's a thing. It seems like that. I mean, you need someone to wrangle some of these high school kids, but I guess the ones that enroll are probably the more disciplined ones. So
Yeah, that's true. I do think that the ones that and not all, but most of them are pretty high flyers. Yeah.
sure. Okay. Well, thank you.
All right, well, that's our time. So thank you for joining today, everybody.